The hum of the research station's life support systems provided a constant backdrop to the tension that had been building for weeks. Dr. Marcus. Chen adjusted his lab coat for the third time in 10 minutes, trying to ignore the way Zara kept glancing at him from across the xenobiology lab. The Felarian scientist had been acting strange lately, and Marcus was beginning to suspect he knew why. "The protein synthesis is complete," Zara announced, her voice carrying that melodic purr that all Felarians possessed. Her golden fur caught the light as she moved, and her large amber eyes seemed to track his every movement. "Perhaps we should review the results together. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." Marcus nodded, keeping his expression professional despite the way his heart rate spiked whenever she got close. Zara was beautiful by any species standards, with features that blended feline grace with an undeniably humanoid appeal. Her research uniform fit her perfectly, highlighting the elegant curves of her form while maintaining the dignity expected of a senior xenobiologist. "The cellular adaptation rates are fascinating," Marcus said, pulling up the holographic display. "Human and Felarian physiology show remarkable compatibility at the molecular level." Zara moved closer, ostensibly to examine the data, but Marcus couldn't help noticing how she positioned herself. Her shoulder brushed against his arm, and he caught a whiff of her natural scent, something like vanilla and warm spices that made his pulse quicken. "Indeed," she purred, the sound reverberating through her chest. "Though I find myself curious about other aspects of human biology that our research doesn't cover." There it was again, that loaded statement that seemed to carry implications Marcus wasn't sure he was interpreting correctly. He'd been working alongside Zara for 6 months now, ever since the joint research initiative had brought together the galaxy's best minds to study interspecies compatibility. What had started as professional collaboration had gradually evolved into something more complex, such as, Marcus asked, proud of how steady his voice sounded. Zara's tail swished behind her. A gesture he'd learned indicated either agitation or excitement. Human mating behaviors, for instance. Felarian courtship involves specific physical responses. We purr to indicate interest and availability. Our fur becomes more lustrous, our scent changes. She paused, studying his face intently. But humans seem to lack these obvious biological indicators. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "We have our own ways of showing interest," he said carefully, "though they might be more subtle than Felarian methods." "Subtle," Zara repeated, her ears twitching forward with interest. "Yes, I've noticed human courtship rituals are remarkably complex. The verbal jousting, the careful positioning, the meaningful glances." Her amber eyes met his directly. "I've been trying to understand them for weeks now. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us." Now back to the story. The admission hung in the air between them, and Marcus realized with a start that all those moments he'd attributed to his overactive imagination had been real. The way she'd started bringing him his favorite tea each morning. The lingering touches when she handed him data tablets. The way she'd taken to working late just so they'd be alone in the lab together. "Zara," he began, but she held up a delicate hand. "Please let me finish. In Felarian culture, when one is interested in a potential mate, the courtship is straightforward. We make our intentions clear through biological responses we cannot control." She stepped closer, and Marcus could see the golden flecks in her eyes. "But I've been trying to court you using human methods, and I fear I may be failing miserably." Marcus stared at her, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was hearing while his heart hammered against his ribs. "You've been trying to seduce me?" Zara's ears flattened slightly against her head, a sign of embarrassment he'd learned to recognize. "Is that the correct term? My understanding of human mating terminology is still developing." It's accurate. Marcus managed, then immediately wondered if that was the right response. I mean, yes, that's what you've been doing. And no, you haven't been failing. Her ears perked up immediately. I haven't? Zara, I've been attracted to you since the first day we worked together. I just didn't think. I mean, interspecies relationships are complicated, and I wasn't sure if you were interested or just being friendly. Friendly? Zara's tail lashed behind her. Marcus, I have been bringing you sustenance every morning, ensuring we are alone together as often as possible, and positioning myself to maximize physical contact during our work. Among my people, such behavior would be considered quite forward. Marcus couldn't help but smile. Among my people, it would be considered fairly subtle flirting. Subtle flirting, she repeated, as if testing the words. Your species is remarkably restrained. How do you ever manage to reproduce? The question was so clinical, so genuinely curious, that Marcus burst out laughing. We manage, it just takes us a little longer to figure out what we want and work up the courage to go after it. Zara tilted her head, studying him with that intense focus he'd grown to love. And what do you want, Marcus? The question was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. Marcus looked at the way her golden fur seemed to shimmer in the lab's artificial lighting, the intelligence in her amber eyes, the slight tension in her posture that suggested she was prepared for either acceptance or rejection. I want you, he said simply. I have for months. I just didn't know how to tell you without potentially ruining our working relationship or causing an interspecies incident. Zara's purr deepened, and Marcus felt the vibration of it when she stepped close enough that they were almost touching. There would be no incident. The Felarian Council has been quite interested in human-Felarian relations since our species began working together. Several prominent families have already expressed curiosity about potential genetic compatibility. Genetic compatibility? Marcus raised an eyebrow. That sounds very scientific for a conversation about feelings. Among Felarians, attraction often begins with biological compatibility. Zara explained, her hand coming up to rest lightly on his chest. Our heightened senses allow us to detect pheromones, genetic markers, and emotional states. I was drawn to you initially because my instincts recognized you as an ideal potential mate. Marcus felt his heart skip. And now? Now, Zara said, her purr becoming even more pronounced. I find myself drawn to your mind, your kindness, your dedication to our work. What began as biological attraction has become something deeper. Love? Marcus asked softly. Zara's ears flattened again, but this time from shyness rather than embarrassment. Is that what humans call this feeling? This desire to be near someone constantly, to share experiences with them, to protect and nurture them? That's part of it, Marcus said, his hand coming up to cup her face gently. Her fur was softer than he'd imagined, like silk beneath his palm. Love is complex. It's attraction and affection and partnership and a dozen other things all rolled together. Then yes, Zara said, leaning into his touch. I believe I love you, Marcus Chen. The admission hung between them, profound and simple at the same time. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the lab's temperature controls. I love you too, he said, and meant it completely. Zara's purr increased in volume, and she pressed closer to him. In Felarian culture, when two individuals declare their love, they engage in what you might call a bonding ritual. It involves the sharing of sense and the synchronization of biological rhythms. That sounds intimate, Marcus said, his voice rougher than he intended. Very intimate, Zara agreed, her amber eyes darkening. Though I understand human mating rituals are also quite involved. Perhaps we could combine our traditions. Marcus was about to respond when the lab's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. They stepped apart reluctantly, and Marcus activated the holographic display. Admiral Harrison's stern face appeared in the air before them, his expression grim. Dr. Chen, Dr. Zara, we have a situation. The Arcturus colony has gone dark, and we're detecting massive energy signatures in the system. We need your expertise on the possible xenobiological implications. Marcus exchanged a glance with Zara, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. Their personal moment would have to wait. Crisis management was part of their job. What kind of energy signatures? Zara asked, her scientific mind immediately engaging. Unknown origin, but they're affecting the local ecosystem in ways we've never seen before. We need you both on the next transport to investigate. Launch is in 4 hours. The transmission ended, leaving them alone again in the suddenly quiet lab. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustrated by the timing. Well, he said, that's one way to complicate a relationship. Zara moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. Marcus, there's something you should know about Felarian biology. When we form emotional bonds, especially romantic ones, our physiology begins to adapt to better support our chosen mate. Adapt how? Enhanced protective instincts, increased physical capabilities, heightened sensory awareness. If we're going into a potentially dangerous situation together, these changes could affect how I react. Marcus squeezed her hand. Are you saying you might become overprotective? I'm saying I might become willing to fight a small army to keep you safe, Zara said seriously. It's an involuntary biological response to bonding with a mate. But the thing I feel the same way about you, Marcus replied, though humans don't have the biological backup to make it quite as dramatic. Zara's purr resumed, softer now but still present. Perhaps that's what makes your species so remarkable. You choose to be protective and loyal and brave without biological programming forcing you to be. And maybe that's what makes Felarians remarkable, Marcus countered. Your biology ensures you'll always fight for the people you care about. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, hands clasped, both processing the rapid changes in their relationship and the looming mission ahead. Marcus, Zara said finally, before we leave, there's something I need to show you. Something about Felarian courtship that you should understand. She led him to a private alcove off the main lab, an area used for sensitive experiments that required isolation. Once they were alone, Zara turned to face him, her expression serious. Among my people, when two individuals decide to bond, they share what we call a scent bonding. It's a way of marking each other as chosen mates, and it has practical benefits for situations like the one we're about to face. What kind of practical benefits? If we're separated during the mission, I'll be able to track you by scent from considerable distances. You'll be able to recognize my emotional state through pheromones. It's a survival mechanism that has saved many Felarian pairs in dangerous situations. Marcus considered this. What does this scent bonding involve? Zara stepped closer, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. Physical contact, the sharing of natural pheromones. Among Felarians, it's considered quite intimate, though not as intimate as full mating. Like marking territory? Marcus asked, then immediately wished he'd phrased it differently. But Zara just smiled, her fangs showing slightly. In a way, yes. Though I prefer to think of it as claiming what's mine. The possessive note in her voice sent a shiver through Marcus that had nothing to do with temperature. And you're mine too? Completely, Zara purred, moving even closer. If you're willing to accept the bond. Marcus looked into her amber eyes, seeing the trust and vulnerability there. This was more than just attraction or even love. This was a commitment that would literally change both of them on a biological level. What do I need to do? Zara's smile widened, and she began to undo the fastenings of his lab coat. Trust me, and let your body respond naturally to mine. As her hands worked, Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The scent bonding might be practical, but there was nothing clinical about the way Zara was looking at him, or the way his body was responding to her touch. The bonding process involves skin-to-skin contact, Zara explained, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. My scent glands will release pheromones that your body will absorb and remember. In return, your natural human scent will mark me as well. Marcus's lab coat fell to the floor, and Zara's hands moved to the fastenings of her own uniform. Zara, are you sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment I realized I loved you, she said simply. This just makes it official. Her uniform joined his on the floor, and Marcus caught his breath at the sight of her. Zara's golden fur covered most of her body in a fine shimmering coat that accentuated rather than concealed her feminine curves. She was beautiful in a way that was both alien and deeply familiar, like a dream he'd been having his entire life without realizing it. You're incredible, he breathed. Zara purred and stepped into his arms, her skin warm against his. As are you, my chosen mate. The scent bonding began slowly, with gentle touches and soft caresses as they learned the feel of each other's bodies. Zara's purr rumbled against Marcus's chest, and he found himself relaxing into a rhythm that seemed to match the vibration. Her scent surrounded him, warm and spicy and utterly intoxicating, while his own pheromones mixed with hers in a blend that was uniquely theirs. I can feel it working, Zara whispered against his neck. The bond is forming. Can you sense it? Marcus could. There was a growing awareness between them, a connection that went deeper than physical attraction. He could feel Zara's contentment, her love, her complete trust in him. In return, she was absorbing his protectiveness, his desire, his absolute commitment to her. It's amazing, he murmured, his hand stroking through her fur. I can feel what you're feeling. And I can feel your emotional state through your scent, Zara replied, nuzzling against his throat. You're nervous about the mission, but excited about us. Protective but not possessive. It's a very human combination. They held each other as the bonding deepened, their bodies synchronizing in ways that transcended species barriers. Marcus found himself purring along with Zara, a sound he'd never made before, but that felt completely natural in this moment. Did I just purr? He asked, surprised. Zara's laughter was like music. The bond allows for some sharing of biological responses. You may find yourself exhibiting some Felarian traits, just as I may develop some human characteristics. What kind of human characteristics? Increased emotional complexity, perhaps. Enhanced problem-solving abilities. Your species' remarkable adaptability. She pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with happiness. We'll discover together what we become. A soft chime from the lab's chronometer reminded them that time was passing. Their transport would be leaving soon, and they needed to prepare. For the mission, we should get ready, Marcus said reluctantly. Yes, Zara agreed, but made no move to step away from him. Though I want you to know that whatever we face out there, we face it together. The bond ensures that. Marcus kissed her. Then, a soft, lingering caress that tasted of promises and new beginnings. When they broke apart, he could see the future reflected in her amber eyes, a future where humans and Felarians could build something beautiful together. Together, he agreed, sealing the promise with another kiss dot as they reluctantly separated. To dress and prepare for their mission, Marcus felt the bond between them like a warm current in his blood. Whatever dangers awaited them at Arcturus colony, he knew they would face them as a bonded pair. And somehow that made him feel stronger than he'd ever felt before. The scent bonding had been just the beginning. Now they had to prove that their love could survive whatever challenges the galaxy threw at them. The transport ship Meridian shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Arcturus system. Marcus gripped his restraint harness, feeling Zara's tension through their newly formed bond, even before he saw her ears flatten against her head. The scent bonding had left them more connected than either had anticipated. Every emotion, every physical sensation was partially shared between them. Energy readings are off the charts. announced Captain Rodriguez from the bridge. "Whatever's happening down there, it's unlike anything in our databases." Through the viewport, Arcturus colony should have been visible as a cluster of lights on the planet's night side. Instead, an eerie green glow pulsed across the entire continental landmass, creating aurora-like patterns that shifted and writhed with unnatural intelligence. "The atmospheric composition has changed," Zara reported, her scientific training overriding her obvious unease. Marcus felt her forcing herself to remain calm, and he sent a wave of reassurance through their bond. "Oxygen levels are actually higher than normal, but there are trace compounds I can't identify." Marcus pulled up the geological surveys on his tablet, frowning at the data streams. "The mineral composition of the planet's crust is shifting. Elements that shouldn't exist are showing up in the spectrographic analysis." "Shouldn't exist how?" Captain Rodriguez asked over the comm. "As in, they're not on the periodic table," Marcus replied grimly. "We're looking at atomic structures that violate basic chemistry." Zara's hand found his, their fingers intertwining automatically. Through their bond, he felt her fear not for herself, but for him. The protective instincts she'd warned him about were already manifesting, her body preparing for combat even though no immediate threat was visible. "Landing party will consist of myself, Dr. Chen, Dr. Zara, and a security detail," Captain Rodriguez announced. "Full environmental suits required. Whatever's down there, we're not taking chances with unknown atmospheric contaminants." As they suited up in the transport's equipment bay, Marcus noticed Zara struggling with her helmet seals. Her claws, normally retractable, had extended slightly and were making it difficult to operate the manual controls. "Let me help," he said softly, moving behind her to assist with the fastenings. Through the bond, he felt her embarrassment at the involuntary response. "I apologize," she murmured. "My body is preparing for potential combat. It's an autonomic response to sensing danger to my bonded mate." "Don't apologize for biology," Marcus replied, checking her seal indicators. "Though I have to admit, having someone literally biologically programmed to protect me is both flattering and slightly intimidating." Zara's purr rumbled through her suit's comm system. "You find my protective instincts intimidating?" "I find them incredibly attractive," Marcus admitted, then immediately flushed as he realized the entire security team could hear him through their open channel. Sergeant Hayes, the team leader, chuckled. "Sir, you might want to switch to private comm for the romantic stuff. Though I have to say, having a Felarian warrior watching your back isn't the worst problem to have." The landing shuttle Nereid detached from the main transport with a barely perceptible shudder. As they descended through the atmosphere, the green glow intensified, and Marcus began to understand why the colony had gone silent. The aurora wasn't just in the sky, it was emerging from the ground itself, rising in spiraling columns that danced. Between the abandoned buildings of New Geneva, the colony's primary settlement. "Biosigns are negative across the settlement," reported their pilot. "But I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from what used to be the research facility." "Any sign of the colonists?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "None, sir. It's like 20,000 people just vanished." The shuttle touched down in the colony's main square, its landing thrusters scattering the luminescent mist that had settled over everything like a glowing fog. As the security team established a perimeter, Marcus and Zara began their initial scans. "The energy signatures are definitely biological in origin," Zara reported, her enhanced senses picking up details their instruments missed. "But the scale is enormous. Whatever's generating this much bioenergy would have to be massive." Marcus checked his atmospheric readings, then did a double take. "Zara, look at this. The oxygen concentration isn't just higher, it's still climbing. Something is actively terraforming this planet's atmosphere. To what end?" Captain Rodriguez asked through the comm. Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath Their feet began to vibrate with a rhythm that was disturbingly organic. Through their bond, Marcus felt Zara's alarm spike, her predator instinct screaming warnings. "We need to get to the research facility," she said, her voice tight with controlled fear. Whatever happened here started there. The team moved carefully through the abandoned streets, their boots echoing in the unnatural silence. The colonial building stood intact but empty, as if their occupants had simply stepped outside and never returned. Personal belongings lay scattered, meals half finished, children's toys abandoned in doorways. "This is wrong," Sergeant Hayes muttered, scanning the windows of a residential complex. 20,000 people don't just disappear without a trace. Zara stopped suddenly, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. Through their bond, Marcus felt her confusion and growing alarm. "What is it?" he asked softly. "I can hear something," she whispered. "Voices but not voices. Like singing, but in frequencies that shouldn't be possible for organic life." Marcus strained his enhanced hearing. The bond had given him some of Zara's enhanced senses, but caught only the faintest echo of what she was experiencing. It was beautiful and terrifying, like a choir of angels singing in a language that predated speech. "The research facility is just ahead," Captain Rodriguez announced, but his voice carried a note of uncertainty. "Though it doesn't look like any facility I've ever seen." Marcus looked up and understood the captain's confusion. What had once been a standard prefabricated research complex now resembled something organic. The buildings had grown together, their surfaces taking on the appearance of living tissue. Bioluminescent veins pulsed through walls that breathed with slow, rhythmic movement. "It's alive," Zara whispered. "The entire facility has become a living organism." "That's impossible," Sergeant Hayes protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "So were atomic structures that violate chemistry," Marcus pointed out. "I think we're past impossible and well into unprecedented." As they approached the facility's main entrance, the massive doors, which had once been metal and composite materials, now resembled something like a sphincter muscle dilated open with a wet, organic sound. Beyond lay corridors that pulsed with that same green bioluminescence, their walls rippling with what looked disturbingly like circulation patterns. "Life signs are off the charts inside," reported their scanner operator. "But I can't tell if we're reading multiple organisms or one massive one." Zara's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. Through their bond, he felt her making a decision that frightened her. "Marcus, I need to tell you something about Felarian biology that I didn't mention before." "Now?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "We're about to enter an unknown biological hazard." "Especially now," Zara replied, her amber eyes meeting Marcus's through their helmet visors. "Felarians have a connection to what you might call the collective unconscious. In extreme situations, we can interface with alien biological systems, understand their purpose and intent." "Interface how?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he wasn't going to like the answer. "Direct neural contact. It's dangerous. Most Felarians who attempt it with truly alien biology don't survive the experience. But with our bond, I might be able to maintain my sense of self while learning what happened here." "Absolutely not," Marcus said immediately. "We'll find another way." Zara's purr carried a note of affection and exasperation. "Marcus, your protective instincts are admirable, but we need answers. The colonists could still be alive, transformed or absorbed into whatever this organism is. This might be our only chance to save them." Captain Rodriguez looked between them, clearly weighing the risks. "Dr. Zara, what would you need for this interface?" "Direct skin contact with the organism's neural tissue. And Marcus would need to maintain physical contact with me to anchor my consciousness through our bond." "That's a suicide mission," Sergeant Hayes protested. "That's a rescue mission," Zara corrected firmly. "And it's our best option." Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. Through their bond, he could sense Zara's absolute determination. her willingness to risk everything to save the colonists. He also felt her love for him, her hope that their connection would be strong enough to protect them both. "If we do this," he said finally, "we do it together. Full contact, shared risk." Zara's relief flooded through their bond. "Together," she agreed. They entered the transformed facility with the security team maintaining a protective perimeter. The corridors led them deeper into what had clearly become a massive biological system, complete with what appeared to be digestive chambers, respiratory networks, and central processing nodes that pulsed with complex neural activity. "There," Zara pointed to a chamber where the neural activity was most intense. "That's the consciousness center. If the colonists are still alive, they'll be integrated there." The chamber's entrance dilated open as they approached, releasing a wave of warm, humid air that carried complex pheromone signatures. Zara's enhanced senses immediately began processing the chemical information. "It's not malevolent," she said with surprise. "The organism it's trying to communicate. The pheromones are structured like language." Marcus helped her remove her gloves, then his own, preparing for the neural interface. The walls of the chamber were covered in neural tissue that resembled a cross between brain coral and fiber optic cables, all pulsing with that green bioluminescence. "Ready?" Zara asked, her hand poised over the nearest neural cluster. Marcus took her other hand firmly. "Ready." The moment Zara's bare skin made contact with the organism's neural tissue, both of their consciousness exploded outward into something vast and alien and utterly benevolent. Through their bond, Marcus experienced what Zara was seeing: the collective memories of the organism that had once been the colonists. They hadn't been killed or absorbed, they had transcended, becoming part of something larger while retaining their individual consciousness. The organism was a form of evolved collective intelligence, one that had been dormant in the planet's crust until the colony's deep mining operations had awakened it. "We were dying," the collective consciousness communicated through waves of emotion and imagery, isolated for millennia. "When the small minds came, we reached out, offering synthesis, evolution, unity." Through Zara's interface, Marcus experienced the colonists' initial fear, then their gradual understanding, and finally their willing participation in the transformation. They were still themselves, but more enhanced, connected, part of something greater. "You can join us," the organism offered. "Your bond is already strong. We can make it eternal, perfect." Marcus felt the temptation through their shared consciousness. The organism was offering them immortality, perfect unity, transcendence beyond the limitations of individual biology. But it would mean giving up everything they had been to become something entirely new. Through their bond, he felt Zara wavering, seduced by the promise of perfect connection. Her Felarian nature responded to the offer of enhanced communion, while her scientific mind was fascinated by the possibilities. "Marcus," Zara's mental voice reached him through the interface. "We could be together forever. Truly together, consciousness merged, no barriers between us." "And lose everything that makes us who we are," Marcus replied, his human stubbornness asserting itself. "Zara, this isn't enhancement, it's absorption. The colonists may think they're still themselves, but they're parts of a whole now, not individuals." He felt her confusion, her desire warring with her reason. The organism sensed their hesitation and pressed its offer more urgently, showing them visions of perfect harmony, endless knowledge, transcendent love. But Marcus held firm to his humanity, to the messy, imperfect, gloriously individual nature of what they had together. Through their bond, he sent Zara every memory of their relationship, the awkward professional interactions, the gradual building of trust, the moment of mutual confession, the joy of their scent bonding. All of it human and Felarian, imperfect. And real in theirs. "You're right," Zara's consciousness solidified, her sense of self reasserting itself. "What we have is worth preserving exactly as it is, together." They began to withdraw from the neural interface, But the organism wasn't ready to let them go. It pressed against their minds, trying to convince them, to show them more visions of transcendence. We must save them, it insisted. They are incomplete alone. You are incomplete alone. We're complete together, Marcus replied firmly. As individuals who choose to bond, not as absorbed parts of a collective, then you will remain isolated. Limited mortal. Yes, Zara added her voice to his. And that's exactly what makes our choice to love each other meaningful. The organism's confusion was palpable. It couldn't understand choosing limitation over transcendence, mortality over immortality. But finally, reluctantly, it released its hold on their consciousness. Marcus and Zara collapsed back into their individual awareness, still connected by their bond but fully themselves again. Around them, the chamber pulsed with disappointed resignation. The colonists, Captain Rodriguez asked urgently. Are they alive? They're alive, Zara confirmed weakly. But they're part of the organism now. They chose to be. We can't save them because they don't want to be saved. And the organism? It's not hostile, Marcus replied, helping Zara to her feet. It's just lonely. It's been isolated for so long that it can't understand why anyone would choose individual existence over collective consciousness. The organism's neural tissue pulsed once more, and suddenly Marcus could feel its presence in his mind one last time. You choose the difficult path, it communicated. Individual love, with all its pain and uncertainty. Why? Marcus looked at Zara, feeling their bond humming between them, imperfect, mortal, gloriously real. Because choosing to love someone despite all the risks and limitations makes it mean something, he replied. Perfect unity isn't love, it's just existence. The organism considered this, its vast intelligence processing concepts that were foreign to its nature. Finally, with something that felt like understanding, it withdrew completely from their minds. As they made their way back through the transformed facility, Marcus felt the organism beginning to change again. The walls were becoming less organic, more crystalline, as if it was choosing a new form of existence that didn't require absorption of other consciousness. It's learning, Zara observed. We showed it that connection doesn't require consumption. Think. It'll be okay. I think it's going to become something entirely new, she replied. Something that can connect with other species without absorbing them. They emerged from the facility to find the green aurora beginning to shift, becoming less intense but more complex, as if the organism was experimenting with new forms of expression. Mission status? Captain Rodriguez asked as they reached the shuttle. Colonists are alive and chose their fate, Marcus reported. The organism is non-hostile in learning new ways to interact with individual consciousness. I recommend establishing a diplomatic protocol rather than a rescue operation. As the shuttle lifted off, Marcus and Zara sat close together, their bond thrumming with shared experience and deepened understanding. No regrets? Marcus asked softly. Zara's purr rumbled through her suit's system. About choosing messy, mortal, individual love over perfect collective consciousness? Never, even though we could have been together forever. We are together forever, she replied, squeezing his hand. Just not in the way the organism understood. We're together by choice, renewed every day, growing and changing while remaining ourselves. Marcus smiled, feeling the truth of it in their bond. They had faced transcendence and chosen humanity and Felarian nature instead. Chosen the beautiful imperfection of individual love over the sterile perfection of collective consciousness. So, he said as they settled in for the journey home, ready to write the most unusual xenobiology report in galactic history. Zara's laughter was music in his ears. Ready to start the rest of our beautifully imperfect lives together. Through the viewport, the aurora continued to shift and dance, the organism learning new songs to sing to the stars. And in the shuttle, two beings from different species held hands and chose love over transcendence. knowing they had made the right choice. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.